Hello everyone, welcome to new video. Today I'm going to present how to connect SQL Server Database into using ASP.NET project and ASP.NET Database Connection common issue. So there is two way we can connect SQL Server using Windows authentication and also using SQL Server username and password. So we already have a project. I already connected the database. So here is the common CRUD operation project. Now I'm going to explain how you can connect SQL Server two-way. First one is using Windows authentication. As you already log in into your Windows operating system, using this authentication you can connect SQL Server. And second one, you can connect SQL Server using your SQL Server username and password. But remember, during the installation, if you do not enable SQL Server login, then you have to manually enable the SQL Server username and password login operation. So let's start. So I'm considering you have already installed Visual Studio 2020. Let me show you the list. Basically, what is the required installation? Required installation in the C item. I have category A, B, C. A part I will discuss about how to connect to A, and B part how we are handling the most common SQL Server errors, and C is the required field. So you have to install Visual Studio 2020, which is absolutely free for community version. .NET SDK 7.0. In this project, we have used 7. And you can use a later version as well. Currently, Microsoft already released 8, which is more stable right now. And I also shared the download link. You can using this link, you can download as well. MSSQL Server 2017 or later earlier version, sorry, or earlier version. And how you are going to connect SQL Server, you need a client. It can be any client, but most popular .NET Stack SQL Server connected connection client is SSMS. You can download using this. And number D, I will discuss about enable user login in SQL Server if during the installation you did not enable the SQL user login, and how to create a new user. So let's start one by one. I have a project which I already connected using SQL Windows authentication. So if you in the project you have a like ASP app setting.json, in that we have a like connection string name. So this is the connection string name. This connection string name you have to provide in the program.cs file. First you read the connection string using builder.configuration get connection string. So here is the connection string, and you have to pass application db context, use SQL Server into the parameter connection string. So we have a Windows authentication connection string. So, and we have a server name. You have to provide server name, database, which database you are going to use, and trusted connection true for SSL issue, and multiple active results true. This is default setting. So you might be questioned how you are going to get your SQL Server name. So this is the most common. Most of the cases, my client student always uh, going to mix a miscommunication or confusion here. Pass the just a default project. So this is my server name. They are using this server name. So your server name is your local SQL Server name. So I hope you already installed SQL Server. Let me open my SQL Server. This is my SQL Server, and you can see your server name here, desktop 9Q8712 slash SQL Server 2017. So this is your SQL Server. Also, you can get your SQL Server name by typing simple query. So I'm going to show you how you can get your SQL Server name using SQL query. Select double server name. So if you type this in the SQL Server, and you can get your, so just you have to copy and paste in your server name. So remember, this is your server name. And database, this is your database, which database you are going to use. And trusted connection, multiple active results, this is the common settings. So Windows authentication, if I just close the SQL Server, let me just show you how Windows authentication used in SQL Server, SqlException. So I have installed SQL Server Management Studio 19. Hope you can install and get this. And if you already have this Management Studio for database viewer, you can easily use. So I have both option: login as a username and password using SQL Server Authentication, also the Windows authentication. So Windows authentication, if I connect, so hopefully successfully connect to the SQL Server. So here is the database, and if we execute the same query again without any issue or error, we can execute the SQL query. Select at the rate server name. So first one is done. How to connect SQL Server in ASP.NET project using Windows authentication. So remember, this is your connection string and this is your local SQL Server name. Also, if you have a live SQL Server, then you have to provide like Azure or AWS database server name here. If we run the project, then definitely without any issue or error, we can able to connect our common CRUD operation category. So here is the category table. I'm just closing it. Now our second option is I'm going to connect SQL Server using username and password. So now I'm going to create another connection string, which is SQL Server username and password. So server name is same, but and database name also same. Now we have to provide user ID. I'm going to share my SQL Server user ID as a default, and password. Here is my SA login password. So I'm just copying my new connection string and provide into the connection string. So if I going to build this project and rebuild and run the project, before running this project, let me show you the proof how we can connect using SQL Server connection username and password. So connection object, and I'm going to create SQL Server Authentication password. Username is SA and password is dev123, dev12345 6. Connect. So SQL Server connection successful and build successful. Our connection string is ready. If we're going to run the project, then definitely without any error we can able to connect the SQL Server. And then the SQL Server, we have like server name, and if we have a database name personal data mng dev, and if we execute the category, then we have 17 custom 17 dummy data, and here is the 17. So if we go into the next page, so summary, we can able to connect using Windows authentication, first one, and second one is SQL Server authentication. Now I'm going to show how you can enable SQL Server authenticate username and password. Just right click in your server properties and go to the security option. So if you already not enable, might be it will select it Windows authentication. So you have to select SQL Server Windows authentication. Okay, and then you have to restart your server. Then you can able to connect using SQL Server authentication as well. So now our next option, SQL Server common error. SQL Server. So ASP.NET database connection common error. So most common error, a network related instance, and second one is a connection was successful established but the error occurred during the login if you provide the wrong password and username. So let me show you. So if I type the wrong server name, let's say 17 to 10 and something wrong server name. So if we run the project now, then application will try to get the server name, local server name, but it will fail to get the server name, and application will throw the common exception error, which is a network related instance because server was not found. So it is taking time. Hopefully we will get our expected error here. A network related instance, a network related instance error occur while establishing the connection of SQL server. The server was not found or accessible. So if you provide the wrong server name, I'm just going to undo it. So if you provide the right server name and run project again, then definitely you will able to connect your application with SQL Server, and data communication will be smoother without any issue and error. You can perform your CRUD operation, create, update, delete, and view C. So database connection successful. So another connection issue, if you are providing somehow you wrong username or password. Let's say I'm going to provide something wrong as a username, and if we run this project, then the application first try to connect the server. So application will get the server but try to log in into the server, then application will fail to log in. So connection was successfully established but server error occur login because we did not provide the right username and password. So this is a two common error, a network related instance, and second one is connection was successful but server not accessible. And after the deployment, there is another error. You cannot log in into the application because if you use the Windows authentication, SQL Server not allow the Windows authentication. Remember, for SQL IIS deployment, you have to use SQL Server username and password string so that from the IIS hosted application, you can access the application. So we have discussed how to connect SQL Server in ASP.NET application, both Windows authentication and SQL Server authentication, and how you can get your SQL Server name, and how you provide your connection string into the program.cs file, which is starting of the application. Here is the instance. And you get the connection string and provide your connection string to SQL Server. And server, if you provide the right server name and SQL username password, both Windows authentication and SQL Server authentication, you can able to connect the server successfully. So this is the two common common error in the during the SQL Server connection, and this is the two way you can connect SQL Server in your ASP.NET application. And I already explained required installation. I will share this detail. And the number third one is how you can create new user, enable user login into SQL Server. So just you have to go to the SQL Server. So now you can create a new user into SQL Server. Just go to security folder, expand it, and into the login. And we have just as a default user login, and also the other system users. I'm just going to create another user so that you can get the experience how we can create the SQL Server username and password. And using that username and password, you can connect your ASP.NET application. So you can create Windows authentication username, user, and connect by searching here. Also the SQL Server authentication. So we are going to create SQL Server authentication username dev, and password just 12345. So I'm just uncheck the password policy so that we can easily create. Also, you have to enable server role so that you can perform the DB operation, DB creator, and system others. You can select all as it is local server, no issue for checking more. User mapping not required, it will be automatically map the default database status. Enable general SQL Server, and login name is dev. If I going to create, hopefully without any issue we can create the dev somehow. 1 2 3 4 5 6, sorry, dev 1 2 3 and dev 1 2 3. Okay, so successfully dev user has been created. Now I'm going to preview how we can connect using this username and password. Disconnect and connection object explorer, and username is dev, password is dev123. Just remember this password for next time login, so we can able to connect. And if we select the SQL query and our expected database personal data mng, you can select your database from drop down list here. And if we execute our category table, then we can able to get our data as well. Now I'm going to show you how we can connect using this new username and password. So we have to provide username, new username dev, and password is dev123. So we have provided new username and password, and into the program.cs we have already passed the SQL Server login connection string name. If Now just to rebuild the project, and hopefully if we can run this project, then definitely we can able to connect our SQL Server without any issue and error. And just running the project. So project is try to connecting SQL Server with new username and password, and into our connection string we have provided just for cross checking, right SQL Server name, new username and password, which is dev123, and we are able to connect the SQL Server, and we are able to perform the read operation, data read operation. So SQL Server connection is sometimes challenging for new or novice user into the ASP.NET. So always I get the issue. Well, let's say a project is not connecting, database is not connecting. How I can connect my database? How to connect the SQL Server? And project not loading the data. So you have to make sure first the connection string. So here is the connection string, and before make suring the connection string you have to install the SQL Server. This is the management studio, and how you can connect your SQL Server. But we have to install required item SQL Server 2017 on earlier version. And how you can view your database, you can install the this SQL Server Management Studio 19. And for ASP.NET project running, you can use Visual Studio 2020 Community, which is free. So if I'm going to summary this project, then what we discussed in this video, how you can connect your SQL Server. You can connect SQL Server to it using Windows authentication. First one is Windows authentication. Second one is SQL Server authentication. And database error, so two major error: network related instance, if you provide the wrong username, wrong password, and wrong server name. So wrong server name is network related instance, and server is not accessible if it is a remote server. And if you provide the right server, if application find the server but cannot log in, then this error will the exception will thrown by application. And for connecting database and running ASP.NET project, you have to install three things: Visual Studio, .NET SDK, SQL Server, and if you want to view the SQL Server, you have to install SQL Server Management Studio for accessing your server. And I already explained how you can enable user login into SQL Server and create the new user into the SQL Server. So this is the overall summary. So most of the cases I got the question. I have a project which is .NET 6.7, but I cannot connect run the project. So before running the project, you have to make sure you have installed the right .NET SDK version. How you can check the .NET SDK version? Just go to your PowerShell into the Windows button, PowerShell, and type, here is my PowerShell, CLS and .NET double dash version. So I already installed the latest. So if you want to check your older version, just you have to type .NET info. So you can check the all installed .NET SDK. So I have installed most of the .NET SDK version in my local PC for different projects. So I already installed the 6. So 6 and 7, how you can check this project is using which .NET SDK? Just you have to click the project, double click, and you can check the target framework in .NET 7. So if you install .NET 7 and if your database connection string is right, especially SQL Server name, username and password, and SQL Server is running, if not stop. So then if you run the project, then definitely you can able to connect the SQL Server in your SQL in your ASP.NET application without network related instance error, login error, server issue, and other .NET SDK issue. So I'm just closing this video and summarize how many issues you are facing if you have a ASP.NET project. So you have to make sure .NET SDK, you have to make sure SQL Server into your local PC, or you can use remote SQL Server. And you have to make sure a right database connection, which is pretty important. So you have to go to the SQL Server and get the server name by, you can get the server name directly from here. This is your server name. Also by using the SQL query, you can get your server name by executing the SQL query. And also you have to provide this SQL string into the SQL server connection and the program.cs file properly. After build and run the project, then you can able to get your any project connection with your SQL server. This is a simple project, and we are able to connect two-way, both SQL server login, also the Windows login, and we can check the error when we are going to error if we provide the wrong server name and wrong username and password. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any further question, feel free to comments and reply, and I will share all the details in the video description. See you in the next video. Thank you.